we love photograph, Wiki loves photograph. So we know that Commons is a repository of millions of media files, and there are so many popular competitions. Wiki loves monuments, Share Your Struggle, Wiki loves food, and all the sister projects, most of them need photographs. But the thing is that can you please the next slide, please? Yeah. So as a co-organizer of Wiki Loves Monuments in India, and as a judge of Wiki Loves Food, what I saw is that not all of the images are good. We know that, but some images can be better if they follow certain points. So in Commons we all know that in Commons we have quality images and featured pictures. So in those pages we will see that they have listed certain things which should be done to take a good photograph. But as this is not a full-fledged photography workshop, I will not go to all the points, but I have zeroed on into these 4 points, because what I have seen is that most of the images we see in these competitions, they have some problems with these 4 points. So this exposure, focus, composition, and distortion. So if we can correct these 4 points, we will be able to get a huge number of quality images. So the next slide, please. Yeah. For exposure, yeah, we need light for photography, but we also need to expose it correctly. Like for the first picture, if you see, this is the tribal museum in Bhubaneswar. So we are documenting this museum wall with these tribal paintings. So that is documented properly. That's not a problem here. The problem is the sky. The sky is overexposed. So even if the photo is documenting it correctly, what we want to document, it's not actually a good photograph. If you see the second image, the sky and the shadows, both are properly exposed. So that is the perfect exposure we should aim for. But often what happens is that we don't get adequate light because we are not shooting in a studio. So in that case, we can be a bit creative. Like the third image, where the foreground is deliberately kept underexposed and used as a frame for the photo, because if we try to expose the wall, that river and the sky will be overexposed. So be creative and try not to overexpose any areas. So this is the first problem we find with many images. The next slide, please. And the second one is focus. So we all know that we love these DSLR-like photos, and even in today's mobile we have this, what is it? Yeah, portrait mode, yeah. So we all love these things. This is very Instagrammable. But if we look for actual photographs, this is a problem, because if we see the first image, it looks very good, but it is actually the image of a food. So we are trying to document a food, but the focus is on the rim of the bowl, not the food. So it might look good, but it's not properly documented. If you see the second image, the rice and the beresta, the onions, they are properly in focus, but the chicken is not in focus. So when you are trying to document something, you will have to document the whole thing. We can keep the rice on the back blur, but we'll have to keep all the elements in focus, because this is not a veg biryani, this is a chicken biryani. So we'll have to keep the chicken in focus. So, and if we see the third image, that's what we should aim for, because it's a raspberry, it's a beautifully blurred background, the bouquet is there, but the thing that we want to document is properly in focus. We have with us Rangan Dotto. He's a very good photographer from Calcutta. Please welcome. I would like him to go through the next 2 points, because
so composition is very important part of photography. Okay, so this is a temple. This is probably the Palpara temple in Noida, West Bengal, about 100 kilometers north of Calcutta. So this is a very good perspective. You see the walls are perfectly vertical, and so this is something we can do. Okay, so whenever your camera shifts, okay, whenever you're holding the camera. The thing is that in order to rectify that, you have distortion correction lenses, okay, but they do come at a huge price. Okay, so we are not able, most of us are not able to afford it. So what you can do is that we have a poor man's solution. Okay, poor man's solution is softwares. Okay, I personally use the Photoshop software, and where distortions, barrel distortions, linear distortions, different types of distortions, I'm not getting into the details of that. Those can be rectified using Photoshop to certain extent. Okay, it cannot be rectified perfectly, but over practice you can make it more and more perfect, but obviously you won't reach the 100% perfection. Okay, so this one আচ্ছা আগে স্লাইডে একভাবে যাবে একটু আগে আগে যেটা বলে একটু composition চল সরি composition একটু বলে নি হ্যাঁ for example common pictures. Okay, this Hampi temple, the Vaital temple in Hampi is a very common picture. So if you look up in the comments, probably it has hundreds, maybe thousands of photographs. Okay, last case there's a discussion that should we click pictures of Taj Mahal. So if you see the comments, there have been photographs of Taj Mahal, every possible photographs of Taj Mahal with the every possible background with blue sky, with dark clouds, with white clouds, and from every possible angle. But the competition we have, Shumit arranges. I'm not part of the competition. I've always been a participant. So the Wiki loves monument. So this time India, we second prize হয়েছিল বলে না তাজমহলের ছবিটা second prize হয়েছিল না first third prize. Okay, probably the second I wrote just forgot the position. The second or the third prize was a picture of the Taj Mahal. So I'm always encouraging people to take photographs of monuments which are still there, but look for unusual angles, look for unusual skies, which is obviously not under your control. Okay, and the third photograph obviously has details. Okay, you have details of architecture. I'll be going it in the next slide. Okay, next slide. Yeah. So distortion, this photograph has a distortion. Okay, this is a image in Kanla, and the main problem is that you cannot get back. Okay, I've been to the place, so if you take a picture from a far away, the distortion becomes lesser. Okay, but in this particular position, since I've been familiar with the structure, you cannot get back. Okay, it cannot get back. So you have to take it and use Photoshop to rectify it, or the other option, if you have a lot of money with you, you can buy a distortion correction lens. And this is perfectly, the first one is a perfectly corrected image. You can correct it like this. Okay, the photograph may have been in a this way, but it has been corrected. And in some cases, it's better to keep the distortion because distortion adds to the aesthetics value of the photograph. Okay, so if you keep the distortion, this is distorted. Okay, very much distorted, but it looks very nice because the lines are marching towards the up. Okay, so keeping the distortion for artistic value can also add value to the photograph. Okay, so especially for when you are sending photographs for competitions like WLM, this would be very useful. What did I show? This is the last part. Okay, yeah. So we'll have any questions related to photography and the type of photographies you use. By the way, how many use a DSLR or a mirrorless camera? How many of you have a DSLR? Not much. Okay, fine. Yeah. So see, how do you post produce your photographs? Okay, you use production. You shoot in RAW. Shoot in RAW. Gives you a lot of image to rectify your photographs after you have shot. Okay, so that's the image. I would always encourage people to shoot in RAW.
Yeah, thank. Can you go to the second slide, please? Before, yeah, no, the one after that. Yeah. So if we look for these 4 points, if we can correct these 4 points, we can get a huge increase in quality images. So this exposure, focus, composite, not in a very in a way which is very common, and then the distortion, you will have to correct it. You can shoot it, you will have to correct it, you will have to process it. And the last but one. Yeah. And apart from that, of course, do not over-process your images, because sometimes people tend to over-process the sky. It looks very, very fake. And do not compress or reduce the size of the image. Try not to have too much noise, because sometimes we can't avoid, because there's low lighting, there's some noise, but try to avoid the noise. Try to do a color correction, because auto white color corrections are not always correct. And try to avoid reflections and lens flare, because when you are taking some pictures of something behind a mirror, behind a glass, so try to avoid the reflection. If we can look for these things, if we can correct these things, there will be a huge increase in quality images. Thank you, that will be all.